while a prisoner was eating with an iron spoon. He came up with an astonishing plan. He quietly rubbed the iron spoon on the sole of his shoe, then calmly called over a guard, claiming that his spoon was dirty and requesting a new clean one. His cellmate seemed to realize Frank's intentions, and helped him by supporting the request for a new spoon. Reluctantly, the guard agreed to their request. Thus began one of the greatest jailbreaks in history. As Frank went to exchange the spoon, his cellmate and the guard were distracted by conversation. Frank seized the opportunity and took a new spoon from the cutlery box. However, no one noticed that he actually took 2 spoons, because he needed to modify one to make it into a useful escape tool.
Frank bends the tip of one spoon,
then removed the pressure handle from a nail clipper. He combined the spoon handle with the clipper handle to form the desired shape. He sprinkled zinc powder evenly over the connection, and finally heated it with a match, perfectly fusing the 2 parts together. Using his homemade escape tool, Frank began to hammer at the wall. Since the prison was surrounded by the sea, the concrete was corroded by the salt, which had already been factored into Frank's plan. Other tools were exchanged by Frank over the course of a month, using cakes to trade with his fellow inmates. While Frank was hammering the wall, a patrolling guard appeared. The inmate on lookout nearby tried to whistle a warning, but was so nervous that he couldn't get a sound out. Instead, he resorted to tapping a cup against the bars to warn Frank. That was enough for Frank to notice the danger. He quickly used a box to cover the hole, and flushed the concrete dust down the toilet. In his nervousness, Frank accidentally dropped the wall hammering tool. If the guard had discovered it, he would have faced a punishment worse than death. After all, this place was known as Devil's Island. Luckily, the guard didn't notice anything unusual, and Frank narrowly escaped disaster. Once the guard left, Frank continued hammering away at the wall. When he had dug out a hole of the ideal size, he discovered that the iron bars were welded between 2 steel rods. Even though Frank used all his strength, he still couldn't pry them open by hand. Frank realized he would need a latch. The next day, on his way to work, he seized the chance when the guard wasn't looking, and dropped the wall debris on the ground. Then, during a break at the workshop, he casually made a latch out of sheet metal. This would help him dismantle the protective grate of the ventilation shaft. However, when he passed through the metal detector at the entrance, the machine suddenly went off.
Frank, unperturbet,
calmly pulled out the latch in his hand, claiming he wanted to use it to level his bed. The guard immediately confiscated the latch, which was exactly what Frank wanted. He had hidden another latch in the sole of his shoe. Back in his cell, Frank wedged the latch between the protective grate and the steel bars, and after several forceful kicks at the right spot, he successfully removed the grate. He stuck his head into the hole and realized he could climb up to the rooftop via the ventilation shaft. Frank handed the escape tools to 3 other inmates, and they, like him, began digging. There were many unknown risks along the way, but only by helping each other could they increase their chances of escape. However, the next steps would prove to be the key to the entire jailbreak.